Hey, it's Juck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. I'm sitting here watching clean old-fashioned hate. Georgia Tech. It is 3-3 in the first quarter. And we just watched Nebraska lose again to Iowa. Got mollywopped. Nebraska 7-5. Poor Matt Rule. Remember Matt Rule's season 3? I know. They lost Raiola. Raiola got hurt in the USC game. Who knows? Maybe they win that USC game with Raiola. Word is that he may transfer. Word is that Nebraska fans are fine with that. They like this TJ Lateef, which is amazing to me. You get a 5-star quarterback 2 years later after starting and improving, not a ton, but this is the money period coming up. This is his junior and senior year, maybe just his junior year if he's good enough. But he potentially may roll out of town. We also see Ole Miss beat Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Lane Kiffin, I guess his decision going to come tomorrow. Most of the buzz is about LSU, and we'll see what that has to do with a certain Ohio State recruit commit and his brother, Darius McKinley, who just recently committed. And what I wanted to do today, as it is the eve of the game, is just I went through a bunch of my comments and just want to kind of blabber on about the game, answer some of your comments or comment on some of your comments. We got some good ones, some bad. Never mind. They're all good, but some are from our side, some from the other side. Most about things that I've said in past shows, others some predictions, and I just loaded up a few. There's some recruiting ones. Matter of fact, why don't we start there, as I just brought up Darius McKinley. So our buddy Dr. Nance, ever the pessimist, says Darius is the 600th best recruit, 73rd best D lineman. He is no catch and will have no impact on the future. And I love when people make comments like this, man. It's like, I am an Ohio State fan. That's obviously why I started this channel and why I keep up on it and do it so hard, because I love it and I'm an Ohio State fan. And I've got another comment that's similar to that, and we'll get a little more into recruiting after the game, obviously, but I feel like maybe it's taken my brain off of the game, and that's probably a good thing. But when I see these kind of comments, man, it's just like, dude, this is literally the sixth defensive lineman in this class. 6. And the 6th defensive lineman in the class is 6'3", 270. I showed you his film. You can clearly see the upside, right? Am I saying he's going to be a starter at Ohio State? No. Can you see the potential of that? Absolutely you can, without a doubt. Long arms, aggressive, risks his body body's flying all over the place. I mean, the kid's a playmaker. Stat stuffer from the defensive line, a kid who's recorded 200 tackles from the defensive line from Acadiana, Louisiana, which, let's not forget, up until Blaine Bradford, this class, we hadn't had a Louisiana kid since Johnny Wells and Nader Abdullah in our lives, in my life. Maybe there was one way back before then. And now you've got 2 in one class. In addition, you got the pipeline potential of his brother, who was a 5-star that Ohio State was in on, Dominic McKinley, 6'5", 305 pounds, and was an SEC freshman of the week. The dude's a dog, total dog. So they still don't have a coach. The reason I bring this question up in particular is because, or this comment, rude, Dr. Nance is a very rude one to say about Dominic. By the way, 434 is his player ranking at Rivals, the Rivals composite, and that is literally like 30 spots out of 4-star range. So if it was a 4-star, I'm sure you would be feeling much better. You know what the difference is between 400 and 430 when you're ranking these guys? It's throwing a dart, man. It's throwing a dart. There's nothing that separates number 400 and number 434. Regardless, you'd have a totally different impression, I'm sure. But when we discuss the potential of getting his brother, I think it, kind of relies upon Lane Kiffin, how they feel about Lane Kiffin. Should he be the guy that gets that job? Should he decide that that's the job he wants? And we're going to hear that real soon. And all signs are pointing to that. Looks like it won't be Florida. What's that do for CJ Bronaugh? CJ Bronaugh, the DB, the cornerback out of Windermere, Florida, that that's the cornerback that the Buckeyes had up. That looks like at one point it was trending really, really good. And the longer he waits, the more it seems like he's waiting to find out who's going to take over at Florida. Florida also probably came back with a bit of a higher number. They're trying to keep him in the class, and that's fine. You would expect them to do that. As they have no coach, they want to keep their class together. And it is unbelievable what's going on at Penn State compared to what's going on at Florida in LSU. As the ADs at Florida and LSU, well, not even an AD at LSU currently, but they're trying to keep those classes together for the next guy when he walks in. The reason I bring that up is because Penn State, quite the opposite. But if Lane Kiffin takes that job, CJ Bronaugh, Lane Kiffin's not going to take that Florida job most likely. Then what's he going to do? Are they going to hurry up and turn around and make a quick hire? If not, is he going to sign with Florida on the early signing day? Is he going to wait till February? Is he going to flip to Ohio State? It's something we need to keep an eye on. Trending the wrong way, I would say. But all in all, another question came through, not question, again, more of a comment. And it was a guy who was, well, maybe I should just read it to you, or maybe I should save this one for later. I'll save this one for later. Let's move on to a couple more of your comments. And we will go to Happy Is What Happy Does says, if both receivers are healthy and Ohio State plays the way it should, this game will not be close. I see a 28-10, maybe 28-14 type of game. If the Buckeyes get a double-digit lead, I don't think Michigan has enough to win. And I couldn't agree more. If both receivers are healthy and Ohio State plays the way it should, this game should not be close. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I mean, that's the line that's built into it. We all know, and Michigan would admit as well, that the Ohio State team is a better team this year than them, but they're relying on playing a better game. And there's been a lot of times that, the team that wasn't the better team wins the game. Just happened. And I think if we were looking at this game without the thought of last year in our minds, I don't know that my nerves would be as bad as they are right now. Right. I mean, they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. And I think a lot of it is based on last year, because last year I came into the game with the fewest nerves I'd had in so long about the game. It was a foregone conclusion to me Ohio State was going to win. If they didn't lose last year, if it didn't feel like Ryan Day coached a different way than he usually coaches, then I would be feeling great. As far as pulling ahead, I think it's unequivocal. If Ohio State gets a 2-score lead, the game's over. The game is over. They can't come back. They're not built for that against anybody. They weren't built for that against USC and their garbage defense. They're not built for that. They can't do that against Ohio State's defense. They need to control the tempo of the game. They need to score. They need to keep pace with Ohio State. And if they get behind 2 scores, that's it. It's cooked. It's over. And should that happen, as we got another question, and I'm not quite sure where that question is through my 100 questions here, but the question is essentially, if Ohio State gets up and it feels like the game is in control, would I rather the Buckeyes pour it on or bring in the young guys, let the young guys experience the game, rest the older guys for Indiana and things moving forward? The main thing here is to win the game, and winning the game at their place is impressive enough. I don't need them to bury them and embarrass them. I don't need that. Do I want it? I do. Do I want it at the expense of potentially risking the starters for longer than they need to be in there? I don't think I do. As much as I would love Ryan Day and look, I'm not going to be mad if he does it. I'll love it. If he were to say, all right, I'm leaving everybody in and we are just going to put the pedal to the metal and try to put up the most embarrassing number that we can, I'm certainly not going to be mad. If somebody gets hurt in that process, he's going to be kicking himself forever about it, which leads me to believe that there's no doubt if this game gets to a certain point where he knows it's in hand, we're going to see the younger guys come in and we're going to see them get some experience in the game, which is tremendous for them. It's tremendous for those young guys too. And honestly, this has been one of the things that there's not a ton to nitpick about Ryan Day and the way he runs things, but one of them that I think a lot of Buckeye fans have had over his whole career at Ohio State is the lack of playing those young guys in games early enough to get them a real rep, before they're basically shutting things down. So yeah, I would love to see it in the game, see some guys out there like Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford and Fahim Delane flying out there playing real defense in the game. Because when we look at next year, and I just made some charts the other day that we'll go over this week of what this actually looks like next year. As we've seen, going into 2025, we thought that you were probably shooting at 26 as your target year. Well, it turns out 25 has had a lot of guys who popped and are going to probably be off to the NFL, which means now 26 kind of turns into what 25 was, which is, all right, this is going to be a really young team in 26 at a lot of positions on the defense. When we look at 2025, the turnover on the defensive line, who do we have coming up? Well, we had Caden McDonald, who had already popped, and we knew who he was. He was a known quantity. It was just a matter of how long can he play? Can he play 50 plays? But we saw him in 2024. We knew how talented he was. You had Kenyatta and Caden Curry. We didn't know quite how good they would be as starters, but we knew they had a great foundation. We knew they had played in high leverage moments and they were ready to go. And then you had Baby Huey, who, it was just a guess. How is he going to play? I think he's going to play good. But 3 out of 4 of those defensive linemen, you had a pretty good beat on who they were. Well, looking forward to next year, what do you got, man? What do you got if Kenyatta, Caden Curry, and K-Mac are all gone? You just got really, really young with a lot of unproven guys. Then you lose Sonny and Arvell behind them. You got Peyton, you got Riley, you got TJ Alford. That all feels pretty good, but you're going back in experience. You're losing behind them Caleb Downs, IGB, probably Jermaine Matthews. You got Devin Sanchez, Aaron Scott. You got Fahim Delane. Fahim Delane going to win that spot over? I think he will. Playing next to Jalen McClain, your only returning starter in the secondary. Bryce West probably takes over at nickel. Is he an upgrade? I mean, that's just really, really young from the number 1 defense. And let's remember the schedule next year, quite a bit different. It's going to be an unbelievable test. We're going to be amped all year, every game, at least every other game. It is going to be just like pins and needles because of the competition week in and week out on next year's schedule, which includes USC, Oregon, Indiana, Michigan, no Penn State, but Nebraska, Iowa, of course, Texas. I mean, it's just a who's who in the Big Ten, and then you add Texas into the equation as well. It's going to be so fun, so electric, and we're going to have a young defense that's going to need to step up. So that one now, to my point, looks a little more in my mind like I thought 2025 was kind of going to be. Where 25 is now, this is the opportunity to seize the national championship because you might not be quite as good, especially defensively in 2026. On the offensive side of the ball, you're just older. Like, you're not losing hardly anybody. Your running back production's coming back. Your quarterback production's coming back. Your best wide receiver's coming back. He'll need a running mate. I think Max Clare's coming back. So you're square at tight end. And your offensive line, sensational. Your offensive line is grizzled vets with 2 years of college football playoffs under them. So offensively, this team maybe shifts next year from a defensive led team, or the defense is the better unit, to an offensive led team. I think where the offense is a better unit with Julian in year 2, JJ in year 3. And I think it'll be Quincy Porter opposite him. And I think he'll be excellent. So let's get to a couple more questions here. Moving along. We've got Mark Standahar, always a fella in the comments section, and we appreciate all his comments. He is a guy who definitely, not the most optimistic guy, but he just lets you know how he feels. 2 peas in a pod. Hilarious that Jordan Marshall is president of Team Alford after then OSU running back coach Tony Alford slow played him in the recruiting process and chose to prioritize James Peoples instead. Cannot make this self up. What a moron. He actually got his offer from Michigan and Ohio State within 4 days of each other in the summer of 2022. So from that standpoint, they didn't really slow play him. You can't really fault him for that. But it is very, very clear they did not recruit him with the vigor of a guy that they wanted. And Tony absolutely wanted James Peoples over Jordan Marshall. And, at the time, I would say most people would have been up in the air about that, 50-50 coin flip, whatever. James certainly had great high school film, but there's always this thing that a lot of people have, Tony included, that the out-of-state kid must be better and the kid from Texas must be better. Well, that's not the case. And Tony did not put the effort into Jordan Marshall that needed to be put into Jordan Marshall. And that was clear, slow play him or not. But it is unbelievable, to Mark's point, that you got this guy sticking up for Tony Alford when he, in fact, was too low on Tony Alford's board for him to bother giving him the full press, recruiting him. And that's why he ended up there. And a lot of people were unhappy with that video, and including Chad. The Chad man said, this channel turned into sensationalist garbage to drive traffic and clicks. Shame. And that's something. It is true. Guilty as charged that I am stirring up a little bit of hate in Hate Week. I am an Ohio State guy. That's why I do this channel. I love Ohio State. And part of that is I hate them. And yes, definitely kicking up some crap in that little 10-minute clip I put up there. But remember, Jordan said it. I didn't say it. I just commented on what Jordan said. This clearly from a Michigan fan after the Jordan Marshall video. Love watching you guys cry. And I'd imagine most of the people watching this today watch that Jordan Marshall video. I would love to know where out of that video you pick up crying. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's just like a reflexive diagnosis. Emotionally sensitive, bordering on obsessed. You're going to lose again, Buckeye. That's from Marlon McClendon. Emotionally sensitive, bordering on obsessed. Yeah, guilty, dude. What gave it away that I am obsessed with the rivalry? Could it be that I do 7 videos a week about the Ohio State Buckeyes? Could that maybe give it away that I'm obsessed about Ohio State football? Probably obsessed about the rivalry, the best in sports. Yeah, man, no doubt about it. Tater says, we know how a lot of the Cincinnati people roll. Look up the picture Skyline Chili posted with a Michigan jersey on the Bearcat saying, go blue. I wouldn't feed that garbage company's food to my dog now. We always supported them as long as they ain't playing our Buckeyes. They spit in our face and take the enemy's side. I think being too close to West Virginia and Kentucky poison their brains. We know those people love to hop on other states and play pretend because they have no teams worth a poot. It's spread to Cincinnati, getting as bad as Toledo. That is disappointing, to say the least, because like Tater says, I've said it many times this year, like Cincinnati played Nebraska week 1. I was rooting for Cincinnati. I always am rooting for Cincinnati in the Big 12. And it's just such a slap in the face. They want to be treated like as, I don't know, kind of like Miami. They want to be treated as like, they always call it the state of Miami with their players and such. And it's kind of like the state of Cincinnati. They don't want to be affiliated with Ohio. They don't want to be affiliated with West Virginia or Kentucky. It's really strange. It's a strange thing. And a lot of players from Cincinnati, it's been notoriously been the most difficult big city in Ohio to recruit to Ohio State. I mean, obviously Columbus is great. Cleveland has always been great. Akron has always been great. Dayton, pretty good. Cincinnati, the worst, man. Toledo, obviously that's 50-50, but that's a given. Toledo is essentially, it's the border to the rival. Cincinnati should be way better. It should be way better than it is, but it is an attitude that permeates. And I always rail on Cincinnati Stu. Take a look at Cincinnati Stu, Stewie Mandel from The Athletic. And boy, if I can't tell you how good this feels. So Stu Mandel from The Athletic, a common target here on Juck on Bucks. Cincinnati Stu from Cincinnati, obviously now lives in San Francisco. Go figure. Cincinnati Stu hates Ohio State, and he can't hide it because everything he writes is anti-Ohio State if Ohio State is involved. If it has anything to do with the topic, whether it be his questions that he answers every week or an article that he writes, if Ohio State has to do with the article, it is the negative position on Ohio State. Now, I'm watching his podcast with Ralph Russo and Bruce Feldman as I just stumbled across it. It's a podcast I used to listen to long before I ever started this show. And I'm watching this son of a gun, and Ralph Russo or Bruce, I'll play the clip because I recorded it. One of them talks about Ohio State, and I think it was Ralph Russo, and he's talking about the game, and he mentions last year how Ohio State fans were miserable. And as soon as he says Ohio State fans were miserable, Stu just gets a big smile on his face. Like immediately, he just loves it. He loves it. And I'll go ahead and play that clip right now.
I was in Columbus last year when Ohio State lost to Michigan for the fourth straight year, setting off an existential crisis among Buckeye Nation as they were heading to the playoff, but completely miserable and at wit's end with their coach. And just, he couldn't have been more of a distraught fan base, despite the fact that they would soon go on to win the national championship.
Was that your column from that game about Ohio State being the world's unhappiest playoff team?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
good
that was
memory.
Great.
Yeah, the world's unhappiest playoff team.
So then I'm just bebopping around. I wonder how Stu's podcast is doing. Wouldn't you know that Little Juck on Bucks gets more views and has twice as many subscribers as Stu Mandel, who has been a college football journalist and had that podcast for about 5 to 7 years. How you like them apples, Stu Ball? How do you like that? You got no appeal, man. Nobody likes you. Nobody likes you, Stu. Sorry. Doyle says, originally I was thinking a close win by Ohio State. I'm starting to think it will be similar to Ohio State versus Oregon in the playoffs last year. I think the defense will smother Michigan, allowing an early 2-score lead, then force a turnover to open the game up 38-10. And I'm thinking something similar. My score, as I said, 34-14 was my prediction. And I'm starting to, as it goes on, I'm starting to feel like maybe that 14 might be high. Maybe the 34 might be high too. I think if I had to redo it, I'd probably chop that down to maybe 28-10. But I got to stick with my original prediction, which is 34-14. And I'm also assuming that Ohio State wins the turnover battle here. I think that Bryce is going to turn the ball over at least one time. I don't think the Buckeyes will have any turnovers. I don't think Julian will throw an interception. And I know nobody's fumbling in this game. It's not happening. By the way, the official Ohio State trailer for the game got some people angry. We see a lot of amazing trailers this week, like previews for the game. And there are some that are amazing. There are some that are terrible. And there are some that are just recycled that we just see every year. Well, Ohio State does a trailer for the game every week, whatever game they're playing. And most of the time they do a really good job. Then they do. And a lot of times they're like 3 and 4 minutes long. The one they did for the game is, I don't know, like 2 minutes. And it's just incredibly uninspired. It almost takes the attitude of Ryan Day and the team this week. Now, we understand why Ryan Day and the team have the attitude that they seem to have publicly, and how they're keeping it in-house, which is we've tried to amp up the temperature to 1,000 degrees like Urban. And this is the biggest game of your lives. And you got to give it all. You can't let them stand in your way. You know, all that. We've tried it that way. That hasn't worked for us. So we're trying something different. And we're trying something different as in we give our all every week we play. Every week we play. You can't give more than your all. So that's when we see the results. When we do it like that, we crush everybody. We're going to take that same mentality. We understand this means way more, but we're going to take that same mentality into this game. We're not going to make it any more on our brain. No more stress. We don't need the extra stress. We're going to try it this way this year. And it's just going to be the same mentality as every other game. We're going to do our assignments 4 to 6A to B every single play, with the most intensity and the hardest hitting action, the fastest we can, every single play. We do that every game. We don't need to add anything extra onto our preparation. And they're taking that into the game. We'll see if it works. But we don't need to play it that way as the fans. And the trailer for the game certainly doesn't need to have that feel. And it does. It does have that feel. We don't need that. We're not playing in the game. Our way always works. It's insane. It's crazy. And it should be. Mark Davis says that team up north culture is so good, they have to pay one quarterback $10 million. Correction. It was a little more than that. Give me a break. I was still rooting for Jordan Marshall because he was from Ohio, and I thought he was a good kid. But now I hope we shut him down. I actually think he is a good kid, to be honest. That was just somebody else wrote. It feels like Tony brainwashed him. It really did sound like, this is Tony's told me this and Tony's told me that. And even the fact that he felt confident enough to invoke Tony's name in that and say, I think Tony would tell you the same. He came up here to be around the good people. Tony's been running his mouth, which is just corny. It's corny. Tony did something. Remember, Tony, not just a guy who coached at Ohio State for 8-9 years. Tony, an Ohioan, born in Akron, Ohio, a hometown dude for me. And, is what it is, man. How you do something is how you do everything. And for somebody to do what he did, it's not a guy I'd want to be close to. Timo Fedorov says they will use tempo a few times. They'll throw deep to keep Michigan from loading the box. Styles and Arvell are going to feast, relax. Day can't screw it up again. Thank you, Timo. Appreciate your input on the game. T. Shiesty says, I don't know why everyone is that confident. T. Shiesty says, I don't know why everyone is that confident. I'm almost sure Day will take over play calling duties. The real question, what version of Day will show up? It's fair. It's fair. I think a lot of people think he took over play calling duties last year. A lot of people think he took over play calling duties in the opener against Texas. And, that stuff will never go away as Ryan Day called plays for this team for the first 5 years of his head coaching career and 2 years prior. That's 7 years, man. 7 years this guy was the play caller. Now he's the CEO, head coach, the guy on the headset. That's never going to go away. Anytime something looks different than the norm, people are going to say, I think Ryan Day was calling the plays today. And, the truth is, we don't know, and whether or not he's calling plays or not. We don't know how much influence he's having on what the next, you know what I mean? Let's say, for instance, not calling the individual play, but, we're in a situation where they've already worked out in the game plan. Okay, here's what we're going to do in this situation. This is the type of play call we're going to call. And then there will be like 4 or 5 options on the play calling sheet. All right, if we're in this distance and at this field position, if it's 3rd and 4, we're going to call between these plays, etc. Like it's that broken down. And maybe he's saying breaking tendency, right? Like instead of that, in this situation comes up and he's like, yeah, don't go with that. I want to go with this. Like how much is he changing? How much is he involved? That's something that I think would be fascinating to listen to if you could listen to the headset the whole game and see how much of the offensive stuff is he vetoing or saying, yeah, let's do this instead. Which is, if you're the offensive coordinator, probably pretty frustrating. But if you're a first-time offensive coordinator, probably makes you feel a little more confident, knowing that you got a boss who absolutely knows what he's doing, and he's never going to be mad at you when he overrules what you were going to do if it doesn't work. So that might feel actually pretty decent. But at the same time, how much are you getting of Heartline in these big games versus what would it actually look like if Ryan Day never was doing something like that? We won't ever know. We won't ever know. I got a couple more recruiting questions, one about Brayton Feaster, one about the class of 2026. And there is a guy really mad about the class of 2026. I don't know. Should we talk about this today or not? It's not really a recruiting episode. Maybe we'll talk about it because I put something. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. We'll keep it to the game. And I guess I'm kind of wrapped up on the questions. It is like 5:09. If you're watching this before 6:20, I'm hopping on Buckeye Huddle with my man Kevin Noon as we take over for Tom and Tony. They're up in Michigan. They're online right now, live, and they're rapping. And then they're going to be moving locations. In between, when they move locations, Kevin and I will hop on, and Kevin and I will do some talking about the game. And then we will seize control back to Tom and Tony. So pop on there with us live and ask us some questions, fire away, give us your score predictions, talk some junk. I'll pull it up on the screen. We can laugh and make fun of everybody. It'll be great. It'll be a fantastic time. If you are seeing this before 6 on Friday. If you're seeing this after, of course, that's already over. You can go watch the replay. As for tomorrow, Saturday, game obviously starts at 10. If you're up in the Toledo area, I'll be on 97.1 The Fan, the radio show at 9:20. If you get that radio station, if you happen to still listen to terrestrial radio, I'll be on with them for about 20 minutes for a segment up there with my guy Miles, and tune into that. We'll probably pop on, I think, maybe the first an hour leading up to the game, just to kind of talk and chat before the game starts. I don't think I'm going to stream the game live. I just don't think I'll enjoy the game doing that. Especially if things are going bad and I've got people watching me. It's just an awkward feeling. But then after the game, of course, we will do some extensive post-game shows. Usually this year I've gone on and done live with Buckeye Huddle for their post-game show live. I think I'll just do my own live immediately after this game, unless they really need help. But what I have been doing is kind of recording my post-game show, but I think this one would be appropriate to do it live, win or lose, just like we did last year. So I think we'll stick with that again, unless they really need my help over there. Then I'll go help them out, and I'll do mine later on in the afternoon. So that'll do us for today. Appreciate you guys, man. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. You know what I can't stand about that? Should we do Thanksgiving rants today? Let's do one. You know, when you get family, they're from Ohio, and they move away, and they come back to Ohio for a holiday, and the first thing they say, without fail, it was 70 when I left. It's so cold up here. Like they didn't live here all their life until recently. And now, like, oh, how do you people do this? You know what I mean? I can't stand that. Cannot stand that one. Don't come up here hating on the great state of Ohio because you think you're cool now. You live in North Carolina, son. You hear me? All right. I'll talk to you guys later. JUCK'S out.